Hello, Internet. Just for Nerds here. So today we actually wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year for 2018. We have some exciting things coming down the pipeline, but we wanted to start everything off by reviewing some things that happened in 2017, namely in regards to gaming. So we had a few big things that happened in gaming, very exciting things personally for me, mainly the Switch being released, which has turned out fantastically. I know a lot of people are complaining about the game library, but personally, there are enough games on it that keep me entertained and all still allow me to experience other game consoles, including PS4 and PC. But the most exciting thing for me of this past year was definitely Kojima coming out with Kojima Productions and, of course, Death Stranding. I still have no idea what any of the game is going to be about except for time-traveling, rain, and babies that control robots. Beyond that, no idea and don't care. I've never been steered wrong by Kojima, and I don't think it's going to happen now. Pokemon is getting ported permanently to the Switch, which technically some people argue isn't really a change since it's still a semi-handheld console, but the Switch is significantly more powerful than 3DS, which may take Pokemon, as you can tell, one of my favorite franchises, to new heights. There have, of course, been some disappointing things in 2017, but we'll get into those a little bit later. The Game of the Year Awards is something I actually want to touch on because it's actually something that has been a grievance for me for a little while now. So as a lot of you may know, Breath of the Wild won the Game Awards Best Game of the Year. Not really sure overall how, but basically the Game of the Year Awards, if you read their actual slogan, they state that the Game of the Year recognizes a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. So, how a game like Breath of the Wild won is quite questionable. But it kind of brings into question what exactly they quantify as best. So, the experience overall of a game that would qualify for Game of the Year should be vast, it should be well received across multiple generations of players as well as multiple different types of gamers, but it also should really push the limits regarding what that genre is capable of doing, what the present console that it's being played on is capable of doing, and what the company that made it originally was aiming to do, and kind of really pushing the limits, just period, in general, in my opinion. Which is why I have an issue with actually the nominations as a whole for Game of the Year. So we had 5 games announced for Game of the Year from the actual Game Awards. That was Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, PlayerUnknown Battleground, Persona 5, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, 2 of those games were of my absolute favorite games that I played in 2017. A couple of them I didn't get to play and finish, but there's only 2 of those, Super Mario Odyssey and PlayerUnknown Battleground, mainly because I don't care about PlayerUnknown Battleground, and I don't think that a game that is basically in beta testing should be considered for Game of the Year. Super Mario Odyssey is another game I did not get to play much, however, what I did get to play of it was fantastic. It definitely doesn't do much in regards to changing the way Mario games play, especially considering the leap from Mario 64 to Galaxy to Odyssey. It's quite a linear projection. It's not like a crazy growth. Persona 5 was almost 10 years in the making, and I'm a huge Persona fan, and Horizon Zero Dawn was a new game that we really didn't know what to expect from a company that really shouldn't have made a game as good as they did, considering what they've made in the past. So that really leaves Breath of the Wild. And Legend of Zelda won Game of the Year. And to me, I don't think it won for any other reason except for the fact that it's a Legend of Zelda game. I'm not here to tell anyone they're not allowed to enjoy any of the games that they play. That's never my message I want to be. I'm simply going to state my opinions regarding the games and why I think they should have been ranked a little bit differently. But again, never to say that you cannot enjoy a game or that I think you're wrong for enjoying it. But Breath of the Wild at its absolute best was an empty sandbox game that you are capable of exploring endlessly, climbing things. The combat system was easily exploitable in every fashion. The weapon system was atrocious at its best. The weapon breaking system could have been a good thing, however, it simply was tedious. It didn't add anything to the game, but it subtracted a lot from the game because the user experience was mainly, I'm gonna get 6 hits on this monster before my weapon breaks, and then I have to switch to new weapons. So a lot of the game was grinding for weapons just to explore, so you didn't fight something that you wouldn't have weapons to beat it with. The powers in the game were essentially worthless. They really added no benefit to the game. They removed dungeons from the game as a primary formula. Almost all 4 dungeons of the game were virtually the exact same, with the exact same bosses that you could perfect dodge against and then auto-attack to death. The way to gain stamina and hearts was also tedious and subtracted from the overall gameplay. And there's only about 3 hours, I think, 2.5 to 3 hours of functional story to the game. And even then, there are tons of plot holes to that story, like why, for instance, the hero is depicted as Ganon when Calamity Ganon is the issue. And no one's going to tell me that the person on that map that has red hair and a beard is Link. That's clearly Ganon. So the hero with the hero sword is Ganon, but for some reason they never talk about that and never explain it. And now you can ride a bike, a motorcycle, that's shaped like a horse from Mario Kart. Still don't know why that's in the game. But all that stuff is why I think the game is not particularly good. You could spend 80, 100 hours playing the game, but at the end of the day, all you're going to do is find a bunch of moblins and in a bunch of skull forts with treasure chests that don't really have anything worthwhile in them. So they took out all of the things, to me, that made Legend of Zelda good, just to make it a climbing simulator with the occasional horseback riding. It takes way too long to get anywhere in the game, even with fast travel, because everyone is very slow. And there's just a lot of issues I have with it. So in regards to the game as a overall user experience, I think it's exceedingly poor as a whole. I know a lot of people enjoyed it, especially a lot of Legend of Zelda fans. They basically drooled over it just because it was a Legend of Zelda. And again, not saying they're not allowed to enjoy the game, because obviously I want them to enjoy the game. The game deserves some level of respect because of what they try to do with The Legend of Zelda. I just think they took too much of the original formula that made the games memorable and good to be replaced with things that didn't matter, like the shrines and Korok seeds and all kinds of other tedious tasks which make no sense to complete. So it's a completionist nightmare because everything you do in the game is essentially worthless and actually adds nothing to the overall effect of the game. Then we have other games like Super Mario Odyssey, which is a triumph for itself. Again, not great at revolutionizing itself, but it still capitalized on all the things that made the three-dimensional Super Mario game platformers good. The PlayerUnknown Battleground, again, don't think a beta game should be considered for Game of the Year, no matter how popular it is. Persona 5 is a masterpiece. It's exquisite work of JRPG quintessential tropes. It has all of the things that you would expect a JRPG to have, but it's so well refined and so well done that I have very, very few qualms with the game at all. My first playthrough, obviously, was the most tedious of the playthroughs, but my next 3, I beat the game 3 times, were all great playthroughs. I was able to focus on the things I wanted to focus on and work towards 100%ing the game without feeling like the game was tedious. And then there comes Horizon Zero Dawn. And this is the game I believe should have won Game of the Year. And that's one of the issues I have, because this game legitimately pushed the boundaries of the studio that developed it in regards to storytelling, combat mechanics, concepts, basically every way that you can think of it. This studio took a risk. And they completely revolutionized what they're capable of doing. Guerrilla Games made an absolute masterpiece. And I know some people don't agree that it's a good game, and that's perfectly valid, but I don't think that there is much that can be subtracted from it from a technical aspect or from a story or experience aspect, even if the game doesn't particularly fit your style. So personally, my favorite game of the year was Persona 5, but the game that I think was the best game that was released in 2017 was Horizon Zero Dawn. So, I have quite a few other games that I enjoyed in 2017. It wasn't all bad. I absolutely loved Wolfenstein: The New Colossus. That's one of the best experiences I've had playing a game in a long time, especially in a first-person shooter. Considering Destiny 2 was such a letdown with a lot of the things that they changed to fit more with the microtransaction systems. So that was also a disappointment and made the game tedious and not worth the grind. But I enjoyed Metroid Samus Returns. That was also a triumph of bridging the old flavor of games and the new flavor of games. So all of these games I thought were fantastic. Like, they really engrossed me into the story, they really engrossed me into the mechanics of the game, and really fed on the things that originally made me fall in love with these genres, which I think a lot of AAA titles are losing these days. They care so much about bringing in new fans, which isn't a bad thing, but they often forget that a lot of people judge games based on nostalgia. And that can be a two-edged sword. In the case of Breath of the Wild, it can turn out to be a triumph, no matter how shallow the game is. But in other cases, it can directly impact the actual effectiveness of the game. Like, for instance, Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 15, a lot of people have said, would be a good game if it wasn't called a Final Fantasy game. Whereas I think it's just a poor game, period. But that's neither here nor there. That's just, it's people's general flavor of it. But in regards to those games, I think that AAA titles are becoming a bit of a hindrance on the franchises and on the game's development and pushing the boundaries for the future of gaming. Whereas you have Horizon Zero Dawn, which directly impacted the future of a gaming developer, and I think has really reshaped who they have the chance of being. And I think that they have, like, basically the sky's the limit for them at this point. So, based on their criteria for Game of the Year, I definitely think that Horizon Zero Dawn was more qualified than Breath of the Wild, because at the end of the day, Legend of Zelda is going to sell, no matter if you make it sandbox or not, no matter if you give them the ability to climb or not. If you make Legend of Zelda the Legend of Zelda that we've always played, just like Super Mario 64 and Galaxy and Odyssey, we're still going to love it and we're still going to play it. We may have some qualms with it, but at the end of the day, it's Legend of Zelda, it'll sell. Breath of the Wild was too much not Legend of Zelda to be a good Legend of Zelda, but there wasn't enough game to make it a good game, if that makes any sense. So obviously this video is running a little bit longer than expected, but I did want to say that we have a lot planned for 2018. We'll be doing a lot of streaming coming up soon. We'll do a lot of theory crafting as well as game theory overall. We'll be discussing basically recaps and news, talking about new collectibles that are available and what I think is worth collecting and maybe worth market value if you plan on flipping, and what is good for collecting if you're looking to just get into collecting. We'll be talking about products, doing reviews for games, as well as playing through those games as well. So we have a lot planned for you guys, and we hope that you'll kind of come along with us on the journey, obviously. But we definitely want to hear from you as well. So if you agree with what I'm saying, obviously, I love to hear when people agree with me, but I more so love to hear when people disagree with me. Because learning to discuss things in a way on the internet that isn't so much it's us versus them, or it's like a hate-driven mentality, I think is really healthy for the nerd community as a whole. So definitely sound off in the comments below on what you think regarding my opinions for the Game of the Year games, as well as some of the games that I thought were my personal favorites for the year. Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video, and we'll see you across Instagram, Facebook, and any other social media that you can think of. Thanks for watching. Remember to be nice to each other and stay nerdy. Thanks, guys.